it was the first time we had dinner together. And as he watched me use my arms to ease myself into the chair, he said, You're not exactly poetry in motion, are you?" And my reply to him was, "Well, it depends on how you define poetry." Now, I understood better his perspective as we spoke over dinner, because his daughter used to be a dancer, and she came to have rheumatoid arthritis and couldn't move in the way that she used to. But she's beautiful though, and she has made her life something devoted to finding alternative solutions for health. And she started a convention that they have annually over at the Dulles Hilton called Take Your Health Back. And Frank knows about that. But the name of my talk, as I said, is The Beauty in the Beast. And I think most of you know the movie, or at least the story, The Beauty and the Beast, which at least I'm most familiar with the version put out by Disney in 1991, where a prince, I suppose he was living alone at the time, he just had this whole mansion to himself with all his staff and servants and cooks and butlers and everything. And actually I need to get my phone as well, but yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, the thing was, one of the lessons I learned about from the movie, at least when I was watching Paul's daughter in the live production at school, was one of the lessons I thought was, it's a beastly thing to treat people like furniture. And I guess it's something that the ego does, and I don't want to treat people that way. And so sometimes I'm hesitant to ask for what I want, and that's kind of one of my lessons in my life, is to kind of invite help and not just be on the side of, okay, I'm going to do everything you tell me to, or you're not going to help me at all. And that's sort of what I'm touching on today. But of course, in the movie, the prince is living by himself, except for all the staff and servants, and then an enchantress comes to his door asking for help, but he refuses. And she sees in him that he does not have the capacity to love. And so she curses him, saying that there is going to be this magical rose that will bloom over the course of his life, and once the final petal falls from it on his 21st birthday, if he hasn't learned how to love and to earn someone else's love, then he was going to be a beast forever. And she changed him into this huge, monstrous thing, this full of hair and a mane of hair and these big ugly teeth and everything. And so he just lived there. It's like I don't think he had any hope of ever breaking the curse, until circumstances brought around a young woman from town, Belle, who through much difficulty came to love him as he was, and saw his true nature. And in that, he was transformed, and in that process, she was transformed as well. But what inspired my talk for today wasn't a person who was a beast, but more of a situation. As I think most of you know, I had something of a health crisis last year. Bronchitis, which I've had a history of, led to pneumonia, and pneumonia revealed heart issues that I had, which was kind of feeding the pneumonia. And so I had no doctors at that time. I'd been avoiding them for a while, but I finally had a cardiologist who put me on medication, which I was on for a few months. He checked on my heart again. A few months later, he didn't see any improvement. So he strongly recommended that I get a defibrillator implanted in me. Now this would be a device, it would be put about over here, it's about this size, and it would be put under the skin, and there would be wires going through the veins into the heart that would shock my heart whenever my heart would have arrhythmia or an irregular heartbeat that was so bad that it was life-threatening, and it would shock me back into line. Now, I'd hoped that by that time, at the end of the few months, that I would see enough improvement that I wouldn't need such a procedure. I guess it's kind of, sometimes I believe in these incredible miracles, or I hope that they'll happen, but that didn't come to be. And with the prospect of having that procedure, it was such a distasteful thing for me to face. I didn't want to face it at all. I was in a bad mood. I was thinking of every time in my life when I felt like I was pressured into doing something I didn't want to do, and I was looking forward in anticipation of that pressure. And that went on for a couple of weeks, and I think some of you may have even seen some of my mood as well. But those 2 weeks ended basically on a weekend when I was on my way down to my fitness trainer's house for a workout, and she has a client who takes figure skating lessons, and I had recommended to her that song that I had played for the meditation, and as I was going down to her house, that song came on the CD that I was playing in the car, and I was just surprised that I was moved to tears. And I thought about why I was feeling that, because it took me by surprise, and my conclusion was that beauty is important to me, and that I want to create something beautiful with my life. And not only that, but I wanted all the solutions to the problems in my life to be beautiful as well. And to me, getting cut open and to have a machine put in me that would shock me every time my heart was not in line was not my idea of beauty. And I still was not at the point where I even wanted to make the appointment to even talk about the procedure with the defibrillator associates, but I was beginning to put words to my feelings, and that was the beginning of my process. I think it was either that evening or the evening of the next day that I happened to come across a poem that was posted on Facebook that just turned me around. And that poem is called "The Thing Is" by Ellen Bass. The thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it. And everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper from your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weights you like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief, you think. How can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face. No charming smile, no violet eyes. And you say, yes, I will take you, I will love you again. And I just broke down crying, because that's exactly what I was feeling, and it put words to it, and I felt like it gently turned my head to face something I needed to face. And the next day I made that appointment, and actually I'm also grateful for Jeff Cornoya, who offered to go with me to that appointment. And I spoke to them, to the doctor, and learned more information about the procedure, how much it would cost, what it would feel like, and such. But I still said, in the end I decided I'm going to hold off on it. But at the very least came to the point where I could actually talk about it. And that for me was a big thing. So there have been plenty of beasts in my life, and I guess in a sense doctors were one of them, but they're not beasts, they're just people, and they're here to help me, and I'm here to help me too. It's not that I need to let them take over my life. I am still responsible for my health, and I'm going to be using the mind and the body that God gave me to make those decisions. Now, I kind of believe that I'm not the only one in this church who's guided by beauty. I think we're all here because we want to share in community a sort of common taste in beauty. A sense of love, the peace, and forgiveness, and beautiful things like that, that it's really hard to see in the world when we're faced with war, and violence, arguments, politics, but I think about when they're there and we don't want to look at it, or the response that we have is like, ugh, and that face that we make is an ugly face. And once we react that way, if we react that way, we've added ugliness to the world. And that's not, I think, in our soul what we're about. Now I have this philosophy of beauty that there are three kinds of beauty. There's the divine beauty, which is in everything. It already is, and we don't have to do anything for it to be there. And even in that perspective, our faces, our reactions, even that's beautiful. At the very least, if that's too hard to accept, we can just say, it simply is. And it's part of God's plan. It's not the whole. And it's not the caricature that we make in our heads, but there's a reason for it to be there. And the second one was that it's, I guess, a human beauty, which is a beauty that takes work but can be achieved. And I think that I think that the divine beauty is the foundation of our faith and is a good foundation for that human beauty, because we see that we're not creating beauty out of nothing. God already started something, and we're just here to continue it. And we're not alone in that process. And a lot of that has already been done for us. We just need to continue it. And the third one was the artist's beauty, which is the beauty that can never be attained. And it can drive some people mad, but it can also be a healthy passion for life. And in a sense, I like to see God as an artist, and the work never finishes. It's an eternal work. It's an eternal passion, which we are a part of. So I hope that we can be more about the beauty and not so much about the beast. We can look through the facade at the true nature of things and to at least begin a dialogue and begin creating something beautiful. I hope that I invite you to see the beauty that is around you, be the beauty that you already are, and do the beauty that you can, and continue the work that God has already started. Namaste.